If you guys want to go into week 10 in class, we're going to be doing a fork and clone of the preferences app, I believe. You can do that. We'll get started here in about a minute.
I need a little bit more help on this acting class.
Yeah, I can help you.
No, Cubs don't play until tomorrow.
Yeah, Cubs don't play again. That's not an excuse tonight. Cubs don't play till tomorrow.
Cubs don't play until tomorrow.
Okay. Hey, there's one. Well, there's one more. There's like Cubs says this Cubs game doesn't start till tomorrow. Uh-oh. And you guys might notice when you log into the Max tonight, the iCloud thing's gone away. So thank Deb for that. She got all that updated, so that was nice. Not to mess with that. And I'd like to thank Andrew for helping Saturday with the Hour of Code. Thank you, Andrew, for helping with that. We had all girls show up, which was a first for the Hour of Code. A mom and 3 girls and a grandma, kind of almost grandma. I think she was a grandma, 3 or 4 grandkids. And so, but they all did great. It was a good class, and they had a good time and completed their, all except for the grandma. She had some problems, but I think it had to do with the
interface stuff.
Yeah, interface. She was restarting more than she probably should have, but that's okay. Andrew did great helping. And the next one is December 3rd. There's 4 sessions, 4 Hour of Code. The first one's already sold out, but I still need help for that one. I'd like to have one per session. That would be awesome. So if you want to help, that would be great. You do get, as Andrew did, whatever I'm giving away that day, you get to take one of those. I think that they all have the choice of a selfie stick or you'll also have a mobile phone charger type thing you can choose from. So you get something for it. Do what now?
They're like, oh, if the tower's going to die, you can use that one. Use battery.
So let me log in to see here real quick what that is. I think where we're at on that. And while I'm logging in here, tomorrow night's the Tech Expo. We have 125 registered thus far. Tables are all set. Companies are set to come. The speakers are set. Registration starts at 5:30. Dress casual on the attire. So I think most of you are registered are ready to go. So we're looking for a good event. And I will say, because the Cubs game is starting, Andrew and I was talking about earlier, what we'll probably do is the speakers go through 6:45. Then the walk around is for an hour. The kind of, we're calling it the mingling or meetup time. And students. I'm going to show the Cubs game on the overhead, okay, in the corner of the screen. That way people can glance up as they're going through. That way we won't lose a drove of folks at 7:10 or 7:08 or whatever it is it's going to start. Speakers are done at 6:45, so we can start. I think pregame, it probably won't start till, what do you think, 7:10, 7:15 probably? Yeah, so we'll be okay.
Plus it won't be over.
And as long as we, don't you guys believe it, as long as we have a screen up there for them to see the score, people will be fine?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to do that. As long as there's not too much distraction, I'm going to do that anyway. And I'll make that announcement too. As long as people aren't gathered around the screen, you can just glance at it and see how the game's going. That'd be great. Let me see what I got ticket-wise for the next hour code. Let's see here. So yeah, it looks like we still have spots open for the 10, 11, and 12 o'clock. So you can tell people about it if you want to. That would be awesome if you could do that. And it's easy to sign up. They can go to our myreceipt.org to sign up from there. Or if you can remember our VCR code, they can do that as well. Okay, week 10 in class, what we're going over tonight, which is on preferences. And you'll need to fork and clone, as always, the in class, as we always do. Fork and clone it to your local, and then fork and clone it to your local Mac. And what we're going to do is talk about preferences first and what they're all about. You'll change the preferences in there right now to your color preferences, what you like, and submit that, and that'll be your in class. And your take home is creating an app based on preferences using NS user defaults, where you can add in, like, say, full name, address, birth date, and be able to save that as a preference on an app. That way, a person's not to enter that in each time. Or, as always, you can add that to your final app, which some of you did last week. And so either one, I would recommend, if you're going to do the final app option, as always, doing this one just for practice would be good for you to do anyway, because most of you are just starting on your final app as far as your foundation, getting it started. So I did want to look ahead real quick on schedule in here. So let me open this up and minimize my screen a little bit. There we go. So we're in week 10, preferences. Week 11 is movies. You'll be adding a movie, learning how to load movies from your app, both natively a movie and externally, which is popular to do. If you've ever seen our CIS app, we have like one of the screens, the last screen in the CIS app has 8 or 10 movies on it loading, YouTube videos, and then some local. So you'll learn how to do that. And then week 12, camera, photo, video, and audio. That week, you'll learn how to create an app to use your camera and record video. And it's kind of like the master detail we've been using, where you can have a master list of items, and then you click on that item and it goes to something. The something will be a video. You'll be able to go to a video instead of a note. And so that's week 12. And week 12 also, you'll begin your final app project work. So homework wise for week 12, you won't turn anything in. We'll do an in class, but you'll actually begin working on your final app development week 12, so you can present in week 15. So from week 12, after week 12, your attendance is optional. So week 12, week 13 is optional, week 14 is optional on attendance. So you can work at home, you can work here on your app. And then week 15 is when we'll be doing the actual presentation. I want to kind of look at the checklist we'll be looking at in week 14 to show you kind of what I'll be looking for your app, for your final app. So you'll make sure and read how to test and publish apps. You create the website on GitHub. You've already done that. If you don't like it or want to create another one, you can definitely do that, but you should by now know how to create a website on GitHub. You might want to create a new one possibly, or update the existing one. Work at least 3 to 4 hours minimum a week, starting in week 12 on your final lap. So if you work 3 to 4 hours a week, you have at least 12 to 15 hours of work on your final lap, and you can work in here, which is fine. You know the lab hours in here. Make sure the app loads successfully without errors during the promo or the demo. All app functions work properly. If you have an app function that doesn't work properly, you just don't demo it. You say it's not working, but here's where it's going to go. Here's what it's going to do. So I don't expect the app to be 100% mature, because you only have 3 weeks to literally 3 weeks to totally work on 100%. Makes sense. So I don't expect it to be fully matured. So work on the basic functionality of the app. The thought is, like most students that have taken this classes, they'll continue to work on the app post class and then publish it eventually to the App Store, or just use it themselves or in their business. So I have companies that do that as well. So their company just create their own apps for their company or the company they work for. A help document, which we talked about a few weeks ago, that'll also some type of help area in your app explaining how it works. Could be a separate page, I'm guessing, where it just loads up the how-to. I've had students do videos on that one, just do a little quick video. You can use like screencast-o-matic.com and create a quick video. It doesn't cost anything to do that, which is basically recording your screen with your voice. App icons. We've done a couple challenges already this semester for that, and there's steps, I believe, as you look through the modules. We've got a couple examples of how to create app icons, which is pretty simple to do. And there's actually a website you can go to, makeappicon.com, which I have referenced in the helps for the final apps. You literally upload a certain dimension file that's going to be your app icon to this website. It emails you a zip file with all the contents of every icon you need for your app to work. Done. And so that's a service that's totally free to use. So others, make sure they test it as well. And that's your checklist. Oh, and then finally, submitting your app to GitHub. And I would suggest doing that continually. That way you don't mess up code. In the final week, you'll submit the link to your app. So wrapping down, actually, week 10, week 15 will be here before we know it. And so I wanted to kind of give you a heads up. If you've not yet started breaking the seal on your final lap creation in Xcode, probably a good idea to do that. That way you are good to go. All right, so let me bring up the notes while you guys are forking and cloning the week 10 in class. Promo tomorrow night, promo the hour of code in December. Oh, one more thing. Oh, this weekend we start pre-reg, the priority registration, I believe on the 30th. I have put on the social site a link to all of our courses that we teach. So all the teachers in CIS, I put a list of every course that we're teaching. I've added a new course to mine, which is Web 234, which I've already had like 10 students want to know if I'm teaching it in the spring. I wasn't going to teach it in the spring, but now I'm going to teach it in the spring. And so that's available too as well. I don't teach this class in the spring because eventually what's going to happen is when the mobile app development is approved, the certificate, I'll teach 280 in the fall and Droid in the spring. And I recommend all students to take both. Well, you have to take both to get the certificate. And so that's the plan anyway. Do what? What is it? Web 234, yes. What? PHP, yeah. Yeah, PHP. And so that's the thought anyways. We're on the final steps of getting that approved. It'll be just 3 classes for a certificate. 170, which is logic, which you can probably have Eric Wolf, if you've already taken programming courses, do a waiver for that one to where you don't have to take the course, but you will have to have it in your roster and that you've had him sign off on it. So if you had a programming course, you probably want to take the logic course, but it'll be in the mix. Second class will be this one. Third class will be the Droid class. The Droid class hasn't actually went yet, but I'm hoping when the certificate is, if it's in a package, that students will take it. Don't you think? I don't know. I mean, to me personally, if you're going to do mobile app development, you got to know both. Like I program in both, even though we've only had the Droid class we've had it offered, I think, 4 or 5 semesters. It almost went 1 semester, but I think with the certificate, that'll push it over. I'm hoping to get people to take it to get a certificate. So anyway, that's the thought anyway. So let's look at week 10. I just finished an app for my wife, actually. She's going to be using in her, she teaches a Bible study each week with like 50 ladies, and they have to register every week. They have to register to come in, right? And they're using like paper and Excel spreadsheets and notepads, and it's like just confusing. So I created a simple iPad app that allows them to register, take their picture during registration, and it syncs it to the Office database. I created there's a database actually that's totally free to use called Firebase.com. Firebase.com is a back-end database that you can tie into any iOS or Droid app. And what it does is it allows you to write and read data to the service. It's totally free, doesn't cost anything. And what's cool about it is you can also do reporting from it. So they can, do reporting from that site. And so we just launched that this last week using a master detail type of app layout and implementing camera, core data, and this backend database through Firebase. So when it's next week, I might bring it. In fact, I've got it on my iPad if you guys want to look at it before you leave. They're using it right now. So, but it's an inspiration maybe to you doing your final laps. And while we're talking about final laps, before I get into the notes, if you need help, I'll pick on Jack, like Jack needed on his final lap idea. Let me know what code area you're needing help with or what samples or examples you already know in your head. I'm going to need help with this. I already know it. So just shoot me an email, ask me what you're needing help with. That way I can begin creating those GitHub repos for you to help you with your final lap. Make sense? So I think I've talked to a few of you already about that, but I don't know, I made an announcement here a few times, but I've not got any emails from you guys. So if you have questions or you need help, let me know, and I'd be more glad to help you on it. So NS user defaults, what we're going to talk about. This article here goes over in the notes what it is, what NS user defaults is, and it's used in every app you use, whether you're a Droid user now or an iOS user, either one. But it says, let's say you have an app that needs to remember a few simple things the user puts in when they first load the app, like their name, birth date, and that's it. Or maybe to show on a view controller or to show on a countdown on the watch. Plenty of ways to save it. We could save it in a traditional database, but as the third paragraph goes on, this is why it's called, the method we're using now is called NS user defaults, is because it has limitations, but it's very easy to use. It's for simple storage of string-based or number-based data. Not really data that changes a lot, just data that is a one-time setup for preferences, right? Like your name, your color preferences, your birth date, things of that nature. So storage types available in NS user defaults. It's called property list. Is these 6: NS data, NS string, NS number, NS date, NS array, and NS dictionary. Most of these you're familiar with already, like NS string, NS data. It's used a lot for like pictures. The picture I told you about, I created for my wife for her app, uses NS data to hold the picture data in there before it saves it to the database in core data. NS number, just an integer, whole integer numbers. NS date's a date, array, any type of array of names or list is good for that. And then NS dictionary. Dictionary can actually be, usually it's going to be like a table. So a dictionary could be like you have a table named colors. And in that table, you have multiple colors for that. So you have like a green, a red, a blue, a yellow, a purple, whatever. So when you pull up colors, you have all these other options in colors for that dictionary called colors. Make sense? So that's what a dictionary is. It's different than an array. An array is usually just a list of things. A dictionary could actually have multiple lists within a dictionary, all down to one color. So like on the color, you could have your primary colors, you could have your web colors, you could have your, I don't know, I'm trying to think of other colors you might have. Custom colors, if you're familiar with those, like if you've been in some web type of development, where you can make your own custom colors. So it says, to be clear, there's only one different from one letter. The first one is NS data. The fourth one is NS date. And everything else is basically going to be separate and pretty self-explanatory in what the concept of the data is and what it does. And NS data, this article doesn't talk much about it, but NS data basically is used for stuff like pictures for the most part. I'm trying to think of what else you can store. Oh, movies, pictures, audio can use NS data. Okay, when you're calling it and loading it and saving it and reading it. In the number category, here's some examples of number types. Integer, float, double, bool would be true or false, yes or no. And you've seen this in other languages already, I know. I've already talked about that. So writing to NS user default. So first, in order to read or write from NS user default, you have to get a reference to it. So just like anything, you var it or you let it happen. So when you var NS user default, it allows you to reference it in your code. And once you reference it, you can then interact with that NS user default's data store. And the data store for NS user default is app-centric, meaning it's only available for that app, not other apps on your phone or your iPad. And so the method that returns is very like what's called a singleton in database language. It's just an object that only has one instance of a generated per program, which is the term I used earlier, which is app-centric, meaning it's just centrally located and designed for that app only. When you call the class method the first time, the method's initiated, the reference is passed back. When you call it again, it does not reinitiate a new one. It just passes the reference you already gave and points to the same instance. Singletons are often viewed as an anti-pattern, particularly since it's difficult to test with. They're often used to give global state of apps, like hiding dependencies, single reference to a large object, instead of having it explicit injected through the public interface or protocol. One of the common ways to use NS user defaults, by the way, is usernames. Usernames in all types of apps are not secure, right? I'm talking about when you enter them in a field, right? They're not secure for the most part. I'm not going to say that's not 100% true. There's some places maybe you log in where the username is secure, but for the most part, they're not, right? They're clear text. So because they're clear text, you can use NS user defaults. So any data that's insecure or unsecure, whichever one makes sense to you, you can use NS user defaults, right? And so an example is when you fire up Facebook, how many uses Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Instagram or any of those social media sites, right? When you log in to those apps, you might wonder, hey, I'm wondering if my password is stored on my device. Nope. What is stored on your device is your preference of your username. They take that preference of your username, then they go to the store on Facebook or Twitter or wherever. Then they have generally a hash value that's created from that username. It comes down to your local app, and it sees when you type in your password or you save your password if it matches. Now, can you save passwords as a preference? Definitely you can. And some apps do. And there's really no danger of it because when you save it as a preference and the password as a preference, it's not going to be like available to hackers or anything like that because it's still using the same ecosystem of that app. So like Facebook, if you have a preference for username and even a preference for password where it saves it, When it saves it locally, it doesn't save the actual password in text format. It saves a password in what's called a hash value format that matches with whatever algorithm on Facebook's side that comes down to your app and sees, okay, does it match with this username? Okay, it's a hash value that if a hacker did get a hash value of your password, they'd have to have the algorithm on Facebook's side to crack it, if that makes sense. And so, yes, passwords are saved on local apps using NS user defaults, but it's a hash file instead of the actual password, if that makes sense. Just like if you guys have ever used like biometrics on a computer or door access or logging in or clocking into places, it doesn't store your fingerprint on the device. It's usually a hash value of that fingerprint, which matches with some algorithm on the program to validate it. So the next paragraph said, nonetheless, we're not covering singletons today. We're just looking at singleton generally what it means, which is app-centric, just for that app. We'll go on to the actual default call here. So here's what the code looks like when you're defining an NS user default. In this case, we're using a let statement because it's a constant, which makes sense. It's not going to change in that app. So let defaults equals NS user defaults dot standard user defaults. That one line of code is going to tell iOS through Swift that we now have defaults. The word defaults can be now used to write and read to preferences. So defaults.setObject in quotes is the actual name. For key would be the field name. Quotes would be the value. First quote's value. Second is the name of the value, the field name of the value. So in this case, Coding Explorer is a value of the field, or they call it for key, username key. So think of the word for key as a field name, right? And think of the first argument as the value for that field name. So value, field name. So the first line is getting the reference to the NS user defaults. After that, you set it and you're available now to store it. And in this case, it's storing it as a string. And the string is actually set because of the quotes. Okay, so it knows it's a string because of the quotes, but there are other methods to force it to a type. So if you wanted to force it to a bool, you could actually use a keyword value and tell it what it is, what type it is. So bool, int, float, double, any object, NSURL, and then put in here the actual string. There has been updates though. This was actually a 2014 update. On synchronization, there were some changes. Had no changes though in the code abstract though whatsoever. We keep on going down. So to read an NS user default, once you've set it in your phone or your iPad or in your simulator, you just need basically the name of the default field, and then you can use it. So in this case, first line assigns and declares defaults as an NS user default. Second line, if let name equals default.string username. If that content, if there's contents for name, it's going to print. If there's no contents for the name username key, it's not going to print. This is new, by the way. This is new here, by the way, the if statement in the last two versions of Swift. And all this does basically is test if it exists. If it does exist, it allows it to work. Otherwise, it bypasses, it's false. So it's a method of just reading that data. So much like using writing to NS user defaults or other convenient ways to read data back, and you can be fully, more fully featured type of functions that can be used, as you can see here. Everything from bool to integer, float, double, object for key, URL for key, data for key, string for key, all the way down to dictionary for key. So constants for your keys. as far as writing data, constants, it's important when you're using a key to make it a let statement. Make it be a let statement versus a var statement on a NS user defaults. And that's about it as far as what you need to know about NS user defaults. So did everybody get a chance to fork and clone your app? All right, cool. I've already got mine here in GitHub. I've not opened it up yet, so let me see here. I think I just got it cloned to my account. So let me open mine up real quick. And I'll save mine to my desktop here. And do a control click open in Finder. And double click on the Xcode proj. Very simple app, but preferences is very powerful and used in almost every app you use, every app. While mine's loading, what's some other ways preferences can be used? Besides, I think we mentioned what username. We're going to do colors tonight. Any other, demographics? We talked about that. Anything else you can think of that NS user defaults would be good for?
Zip code.
Yeah, phone number, zip code. Any other demographics you can think of, or information that NS user defaults would be good for? Or preferences?
Address.
Huh?
Address.
Address. Yeah. Anything else?
Credit card.
Credit card. Yeah, it could be used with credit card. It would be probably a good idea if you're going to do credit card to probably save it as that hash value, which you can definitely do. Anything else? So yeah, those are pretty common. I can't think of really anything else on my head. Those are pretty much it. I'm sure there's other ones. Now, there could be preferences, app-centric preferences for your app, right? Gaming apps. Tons of preferences in there when you're setting up a game, right? Like what type of avatar you want to be for that game, what type of powers you want to have for that game. When it comes to productivity apps, it could be what font type do you like to use all the time, what font style, font size, the list goes on and on, right? The different types of app-centric preferences you can have. And that way the user's not having to come in every time and make those changes. They know what they want, they change it, save it, done, right? And then they come back in and it's ready to go. So, talk long enough now to expand my preferences, and let's look at the main.storyboard. And again, very simple. I'm going to collapse this outline as always here. And so it's got a title navigation, text view, text field, label. I think this is the first time we've used this in here. I can get my screen to a little smaller there. So this is a picker view. Picker view by default will always have Sunnyvale, Cupertino, and Santa Clara, by the way. And then a button for save preferences, clear preferences, and low preferences. And that's it for the app. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to collapse my right one and leave my left one up here. And do a run. Let's go ahead and run it without making any changes yet. Disregard the warnings on the value, password, color not nil, and all that stuff. Just a warning label. Let's see if I can resize my screen while that's compiling there. Let's come on down to 50% while it's loading, maybe even more, looks like. Let's go to 33%. There we go. Switch this back to the screen. All right, so it asked me to enter a username at the top and password, and then select a favorite color. And as you select the color, it should change the background to that color. If you click on the little name here and drag it up and down, I'll do yellow. Now let's do blue. And then save preferences. As soon as you save your preference, after you put your username, password, and select a color, you can then go to Xcode and stop, and then replay it again, rerun it, and then load preferences and see if everything loads up properly. So I'm going to do load preferences, and there everything is. And so let's talk about some of the fields here. Password field's the first one I think we've used in the password field. So let me open that up and show you that on the preferences for the password. So now my screen's normal size. Let me see if I can show you that. So, okay, if everybody stops the app and click on the enter password text field, that one. Can somebody guess where the password, where I go to properties to change this to actually get the little dots to show up? See if you can find it. It's in the properties, by the way, for the attributes inspector. See what field you think it is for that and tell me.
Is it the secure text entry?
Roll on down there. Which one did you put? I'm sorry?
The little box you check, the secure text entry?
Yeah, secure text entry, right. Yep, that's it, and that's all you've got to do, and then you get the little dots to show up. Now, you might kind of wonder why, when even though an Apple and other places have done this now, when you type a password in their devices, you see the actual letter for a millisecond or for, whatever. It's actually for a reason. Studies have shown when people don't have that little reminder of what they just typed in immediately, they're more likely to literally, as they're typing it, forget what they just typed if they don't see it visually. People are so visual because of the way everything is now. So that's why that is. And by the way, they have actually slowed down. It actually stays up a little bit longer than what it used to a couple of years ago. It even stays up a tad bit longer than what it did, like a few milliseconds longer, because they've noticed it's helped people having to not reset their password, because when you type a password in the wrong time more than 3 times generally, 4 times for most, 3 times generally, though, it locks people out. So it has helped. That's the logic behind it. That's why that iOS started that. But you'll actually see that on a lot of other, even banking sites, a lot of times will do that now on their passwords. You just see for just a few seconds, like a JavaScript is what they use for that. So that's it, the secure text password or text entry. The first object, let's go do this for me. Let's go down. If you'll go on the right side of Xcode and click on that right arrow, the Show Connections Inspector, we're going to click on each one of these objects and go down each one of them. The first one has a delegate, and it's an outlet called text user name. Why is it you think it needs a delegate? Remember from a few weeks back and even last week? Why does text fields have to have delegates? Do you remember? What's the purpose of a delegate for a text field? And think of keyboard. Yeah. Yeah, so basically if you don't have a delegate and you try to hide that keyboard after you leave the field, the delegates, if you don't have a delegate, the keyboard is going to stay up. So the delegate allows you to put hooks in there to hide your keyboard, basically is what it does. So if you have the hide keyboard code in there, which is the same for every app, the 3 or 4 functions, it's the same. And you have in there also maybe the function to block or to get rid of all first responders on all objects. You have all that as well, and it still doesn't work. You probably forgot to add your delegate, which remember on a delegate, it's real easy to do. You click on the object you want to make a delegate, control click it to the view controller, and then you select delegate. Done. And you only need delegates for text fields. That's it. Views you don't need because they don't work, and the keyboard drop down doesn't work for that one. So it hides automatically on those. So we got a text field called text username. It's an outlet, and it's a delegate. The next one, delegate as well, called text password. Next one's a label. Don't need an outlet for that because it's just a label. Next one is the picker view. The picker view, that one needs two. This is done, by the way, for you. These top two, where it says outlets, data source, and delegate. By default, these are generally done for you when you drag the app into your code. But if not, sometimes you do have to add the delegate to it. But most times, the delegate is bound by default to your view controller, and the delegate's bound to the view controller by creation time. What I mean by that is when you drag this object into your code, these two are done for you, and this when you type in to name it, done. And the reason it needs this, by the way, is because just like in your table view, it does need a data source of some type to load data. That data source could be core data. It could be NS user defaults. It could be the Firebase external database I talked about earlier tonight. It could be just a quick array you put in code, like you did a while back, I think, with the web app, where you put in all the two arrays. Remember, one array was for the master list, the other array was for the URLs for those master lists. So either way, it needs a data source. This needs a data source for the picker. The next one's a button for saving preferences. It's, let's see, called BTN Save. Next one's a clear. It is called BTN Clear. And then the third one is BTN Load. I notice on the second one here, I've got clear. I don't know if it's on yours. It is on mine. On the clear button, I also have a BTN Save. Do you guys have that on yours as well?
Yeah.
So let's get rid of the BTN Save. Click on that little X to the left of BTN Save. We don't need that. All right, so we went through all the objects. Now let's do this. Go over to the left side of Xcode and let's open up the viewcontroller.swift. And let's start at the top. Okay, in order to use a picker view, you need to add two delegates to your view controller. The UI picker view delegate or data source and the UI picker view delegate. Those two need to be added in order for the picker view to work. Next, I've got on the clear button, which looks like it's bound to the NS user defaults. It's going to take every NS user default and nil them out. It's going to empty them out, basically. That's what this is doing with the word nil. This defaults.synchronize, it was in the notes. This was added with the Swift, what was it, Swift 2 or something like that. We didn't have to add that initially, but they added that to synchronize it, which made it work faster. The next two, clear out the form of those if there's anything in there. Basically, if there's any text, which there should be if you loaded this already, for the username or password, it's going to clear them out. The next one here, my colors, which is that picker view dot select row, 0, 0, animated true. What this is going to do is pick the very first instance of a picker view, which in this case, it's going to be, we'll look at in a second. I think it's white is the first one, if I'm not mistaken. but the 0 means the first one it's going to select. If it was 1, it would have been, yeah, it's right here in the next here. So var_color selected string, and then let picker color, here's the array that's actually used here. Picker color equals white, red, yellow, and blue. All right. And so that's my array that's hard-coded in. Then the function to load, the load button that we did, again, default for NS user defaults. We're getting the yellow one because it was defined but not used. Swift 3 and Swift 2 point whatever likes you to initialize every variable, which these are not initialized with a value. That's why you're getting the yellow box, the little triangle, but it'll still work. But if let username not null equals the username for the object, the field name as a string, meaning if username is not null, meaning something's in there, it's going to plug it in that user text on the form, username text. Next one, if the password isn't null, it's going to plug it into the password. Next, it checks the color. If the color is in the default is true, there's something set, then it's going to take that color, whatever it is, which would be what? White, red, yellow, blue, and it would become the index of the picker color. Now, the way you get the index number is right here. The name of the picker view, in parentheses, dot index of, and then in parentheses, favorite color selected. That's the actual string value. Index of will give you the string value of that text in whatever order it's at. So if I had, I don't know, blue, it would be what array in there? We have what? 0, 1, 2, 3. So which one would it be if it was blue? If I selected blue, white's 0, red's 1, yellow's 2, blue's 3 in the array, right? So this, if I had blue, what would the array number be here for selected color? 3. Next, it does a multiple if statements to determine which one was selected. And if it's blue, which is the 4th one down, it changes the background to blue. So that's why immediately when you guys loaded the app and you started playing with that, it changed the background color immediately. It didn't wait. It did it immediately within the picker view. Now keep going down. 3 outlets are then in the code for the what? Text username, text password, my colors for the picker view. The save button will take the user defaults and save them according to whatever they entered in the text username field, password field, and what color they selected. And then do a synchronize. Now here's where you'll actually see mimicking of your table view that we've done, which we've been using a lot of master detail the last few weeks. You'll notice on this line here, the func number of components in picker view, that line, that function, what that says is there's one column of code. There's one column of code in this data, in this, you can have multiple columns, by the way, in a picker view, but there's only one, and that one is the colors. The next line, the next function is the picker view, return.pickercolor.count. That one is returning the value of whatever they've chosen or whatever the array is, which in this case, picker color, remember, is defined way up here. Let picker color equals red or white, red, yellow, blue. So that's going to populate, return picker color.count. It's going to populate 4 colors in there in that picker view. The next function for picker view, what it's going to do is determine what's been selected and change the background of the view. So default, select color equals picker view, whatever row they're currently on, which initially when the app loads, it's 0 row. So it'll be white when it first loads. Then when you guys start selecting something, it determines what you've selected, figures it out with the if statement, and then changes the back color. and then finally uploads the picker view with that color. The next two functions are for hiding the keyboard, which is a touches begin. By the way, that override functions touches begin, and the function text field should return. Those two functions here, you'll notice there's nothing in these functions that are specific to the app, naming wise. These are generic functions that can be used and should be used for every app to hide the keyboard. As of now, that's all you have to put in every app on a view to hide your keyboard for that app to work. On the view controller, the view did load, which is the very first thing ran in this. Let me ask you this, where it says text username.become first responder. What do you think the purpose of that is? Become first responder. You got what? You got the username, the password, the wheel to select a color, but it says the first responder one is bound to the username. So what do you think the concept of that or the object of that is to do? What's the purpose of that? When you guys go to a form to fill something out and you have multiple fields, in this one, which one do you think it's, yeah, it just puts a cursor in it. That way you literally want to take your finger and go pop. You're like, well, that's not a big deal. Well, it actually does help. I mean, it makes a big deal whenever people's using the app because you're putting some forethought into people who use the app. Another thing that's not in here but could be in the code would be, okay, when they type in username, it'd be nice to have on the keyboard next to go to the next field, which you can actually do, by the way, with defining your keyboard on the properties and adding just a little bit of code. And so, but this one definitely does do a first responder to the username. And then lastly, the default did receive memory. So here's what you're going to do. If you scroll up to, bless you, if you scroll up to the array for pick color, you're going to change the colors here and downstream to what you change those colors to. So right now we've got what? White, red, yellow, blue. Change it to whatever 4 colors. It has to be 4 different colors, okay? You don't need to do more than 4, but at least 4. And it can actually be those colors if you want it to be, but in different order, if you can't think of other colors besides those. And so go ahead, and if it's a primary color, it should work. What I mean by that, like purple, gray, silver, list goes on and on of different types of color names you can probably think of. Lavender, fuchsia, a whole bunch of different color names. And if it's not available, you can plug something in there till one is available. And by the way, the array or color names, by the way, if you wanted to know what colors are available, a little tip here. If you look on the overhead, see where it says UI color.white color, right? If you do this might help you on finding out what colors are available because you're just putting a placeholder in there right now anyway. So if I do a UI color dot, right, notice all the colors that are available. And by the way, you don't have to actually, for the name, match the name of the color. So like for blue color, you don't have to put blue color, you just put blue. Because it's just a whole point, basically. Just holding that in there as a value for selection. So some of these aren't colors, so just like it's copy of its own, but you can see black, blue, brown, clear, cyan, dark gray color, so on and so forth. So 4 colors, make sure when you select the 4 colors that you want, downstream, change it accordingly in the if logic and in the UI color dot logic. Make sense? And I just noticed on the first if statement, there's a misspelling of if favorite color selected is equal to white. I have equal to while. So but you're going to change it anyway. So it was already white anyway. Yeah, she didn't. Yeah, I didn't even notice it. Exactly. So again, if you just put the dot after the dot operator, just get rid of everything down to the dot operator, hit the dot operator again, and anything that's a UI color should be a valid color that you can use. And the picker color array, again, is just a placeholder for the if logic below. Okay, you can call it whatever you want. Something to make sense to that color for sure. Well, I'll redo mine too while you guys are redoing yours. So green, lavender, it's in there. Purple, same. Cyan. Light blue. Cyan's like a light blue, right? Like a light blue. Yeah, we'll do light blue. So purple. And you can have spaces in your array name too, by the way. If you want, you can have spaces in there. It's fine. Just make sure and put it in the if logic below. And I'll do a gray color. All right. And once you get your first if logic done, you can just copy that and paste it to the second if logic. I think the first one's in the button load. The second one's in the picker view, it looks like. Should be the same exact logic. Except selected color is going to be there instead of favorite selected. So if you copy the multiple if statements like I did on the second one, you just need to replace favorite color selected with the selected color, looks like. Then we should be good to go. So I've got my green, my lavender, my light blue, and my gray. Let me somewhere else see how you guys are doing. Okay. Sweet. It's good. Yes, sir. Yeah, you doing all right? How's it going here? Right.
Yeah, it's trying to launch. We're trying to build in here. Taking its time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you do, I noticed when I was adding the new colors, it'll add the left and right parentheses after there. It'll duplicate it. It's about the only thing I had to delete those, I think. But besides that, go ahead and see if everything else is working. Once that functional, we'll put a username password in there. Excuse me. And save it, and then stop Xcode, run it, and see if it loads. Also, let's test the clear as well. I didn't test it on the first one. See if the clear is working. So I'm going to load mine. There it is. I'm going to clear it. Puts it back to the default, clears the two text boxes. Pretty basic, right? So questions on NS user defaults, the use of it and how to save it, how to load it, how to clear it. Pretty simple, right? So that's it actually for this week as far as your new concepts or new coding concepts. But really, even though it's pretty simple, which it is, it's used a lot in multiple applications, and you can see why, because it's stuff that people use a lot in all applications for preferences. And so code this week for your take home is to do the exact same thing. For your in-class, though, let's finish that up. Once it successfully runs, which I believe I checked everybody's here as we walked around, once it successfully runs, let's go ahead and exit out of Xcode and make sure, and let's update your GitHub, which you should have. Let me see on mine. I've got 6 uncommitted changes. So let's commit those changes that we just made, which is the different colors. Once you commit it, as always, do a repository push menu, and then finally repository view on GitHub. And that URL it gives you is the one that you are going to submit into week 10 in class. There it is. In fact, you've already got that URL already because that's the one you loaded for your fork and clone. So that URL is what you'll submit for the in-class. Let me forward fast to the next one, which is the take-home. 2 options for take-home this week. First is the canned option of taking what we've done in class, and I put in here creating an iPad-only app, which remember on that one in the general area, you just, when you're setting up the app, just make sure it's not universal, just iPad only. Call it My Settings, use the NS user defaults, allow the user to enter in their full name, address, birth date, year range 1920 to 2025. Add the following objects. Add a picker to load values 1940 to 2020, even though I gave you the range of 1920 to 2025. So we can correct that. Add 2 UI text fields, full name, address. Add UI button for load and save. Add whatever needed code, and then commit it to GitHub. Final app option, use NS user defaults to save whatever it is you want them to save in your app, which might be, again, preference of name, date of birth, things of that nature. If you do the second option, just submit the title of your app. And I put in here URL to your GitHub account. I already have that, so I don't really need that. I just need the fact that you're going to submit it in your final app. And before I forget, I'm going to change this real quick on the instructions to match the second number 3 here. We'll do 1940 to 2020 instead of 2025. There we go. All right. And that's due, actually, did I have last week's due tonight or Sunday for the assignment?
Well, you said last night, but I reminded you.
It's Monday. It's Monday on everything. So if I did not change that last week, I apologize. This week's has been changed to Monday, 11:59. Questions on assignment? What's due? All right. So again, if you've not yet started on your final app foundation, this one here I think shouldn't take you too long. I don't believe 30 minutes maybe at the most. If you do the in-class assignment again and do that for your homework, I would suggest at least making the foundation of your app. Single view, name it, make sure and check core data, get that started, get it synced to GitHub. That way, at least you've got a GitHub source started, maybe, is what I suggest doing. And then also put some thought in this week on ideas. This stuff you need help with. I know you're going to need help, okay? So how many's using maps in your app? Any map users? Okay. So if you need help with maps, send it my way because we're not covering maps in this semester at all in here. So send me your question. I'll help you with it. How many's using, let's say, social media in your app, or you want to use social media in your app? Okay, so send me what you want there for social media. You're going to use for logging in? Okay, cool. So send me what you want. I'll give you some helps on that. How many's wanting to have multiple users in your app doing stuff? Anybody? Okay. Same time. Okay. Or even separately. Would be good. So let me know that, and I can give you some helps on that. So if you like it on yours, if you're wanting them to just everybody use social media login for storage and things of that nature, or authentication, right? In essence, it's a multi-user app, really, because of that. So send me those thoughts of what you need help with, and kind of I just need a general framework on what you need an example for. And here's what I will do. I will create a simple app with that functionality, along with comments in the code of what it's doing. And, to pick on Jack, if it's not something that works totally for you, it's not quite there, you can let me know, yeah, but it's not doing this. Don't feel bad if that's the case, because there might be something that I'm not totally understanding on what you're needing, and that could happen. So if I, get 90% of it done, or 99% of it done, and you're like, well, it's not quite doing this, email me back and I'll fix it quickly. That way, because the quicker I can give you that information or that data, is the quicker you can add it into your code. Make sense? And so I'll reply back with a GitHub link with the instructions of how to do it in the code, and I think that'll help you a lot. So starting your app this week will be beneficial. The preference thing is not going to take you that long. Even if you do the canned one and start your app, both, you can probably do both, no problem. And then tomorrow night, registration starts at 5:30, and we will have water there. Pizza will be there. As you know, if you've been anywhere, pizza is probably going to wipe out pretty quick. I think I'm going to have the delivery guy actually show up about probably 5:45, roughly around there, just so you know. So the thought is to have the pizza devoured or almost devoured by 6 o'clock or 6:15, somewhere around there. So get there at least, I would say, no later than 5:45 to register. We're limited seating, so if you get there like at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, there's only seating there for 75, and so you'll have to stand up for maybe 20 minutes while the speakers are talking. Right after the talks, the 4 speakers, which are local companies, just sharing their company, what they do, what jobs they have to offer, and opportunities, and probably words of wisdom to students on here's what you need to do while you're in college type stuff. And by the way, in the speaker pool, there's a CEO of a company that's going to be talking, president, a headhunter, which are people that look for potential candidates to hire for a firm. And then once we're done with that, we'll go into an hour long, basically where you get to go to each table, and you'll have a little app that you can use. I'll show it to you real quick, so we got time here. Let me show it to you real quick. We just updated the site with some this information I'm showing you right now. RBC Tech Expo, I'm going to go to the agenda. And I did update the agenda to include this first one, which is 5:30 to 6, dressing for the event, business casual, stop by registration table. There's going to be 3 people hosting the registration table. If we need to split the table and have 2 of them, we might have to do that possibly. Bring your Eventbrite ticket on your phone. How many already has it on your phone, by the way? You already have it stored on your phone? It should have sent you a reminder, I think, Sunday night.
Just download it.
Yeah, you can download it from the email and print it out. I think in the link it sent you on Sunday as a reminder for the event, it should have a link for both the iOS Droid app to use, or you could just a link to download it and print it out, however you want to do it. But bring that because we need that. During the registration, by the way, you'll get a ticket, kind of like a carnival ticket type thing. Half of it will be yours, half it'll be ours to put in the bucket for the drawing at the end of the night. Then the welcome's just 5 minutes. I'm going to come up and introduce everybody. General rules are, for the night as far as what's going to happen. Then we're going to have Tycomics come up and talk about programming languages they use, C# and VB.NET, mainly C#. Trek Design's going to come up after that, talk about web and mobile. I've known Sam for years. Sam is a great guy. You'll like him. Data assurance and IT security. The next one, Rockford Park District. And each one of these are just 10 minutes. Cisco networking. Entree Computers. Mike Broski's going to talk for a few minutes. And then connection time is 6:45 to 7:50. And you'll go around the room and talk to the folks manning the tables. There'll also be, besides companies there, they'll also have RBC Career Services there, Resume Building and Job Connections help, CIS faculty, advising and programming course help will be there as well. And then on this is a tech card I want to show you at last. The tech card is where you'll go around the room, ask questions found on the virtual tech card, submit 1 tech card per table. After submitting at least 5 tech cards, you're eligible to win a door prize. The door prizes are 4 credit hours, which the person that wins that will get a certificate that they won, be able to use that certificate. Fall 2017 is when you can use it, starting in fall 2017. An iPad mini will also be there as a giveaway. And I'm bringing my 3D printer and printing out iPhone and Android phone holders. Which if you were at the hack night, it's the same thing we did there. It takes about 30 minutes, and it prints 2 holders. It basically fits on the side of your phone and helps it prop up either vertically or horizontally. And then the drawing is going to be at 7:50, and you must be present to win. And just today, we did get some really nice REC tote bags with some stuff in the tote bags. So you get that as well when you come in. That way you can kind of, as you go around the tables, put stuff in the bag. I didn't want students like shoving stuff in their pockets, not know where to put this stuff. So we were able to get around 200 and some bags with RBC pins and other stuff like that we'll have in there. Just, geeky, techie, gadget type stuff we'll have in there for you. We'll put in there my RBC card, I believe, and like a little notepad and stuff like that. Just stuff to help you with the event. So, questions about tomorrow night? I do have my 1:30 class coming with me tomorrow night. I teach at 4:30 that class. They're going to help me set up. But if you are going tomorrow night and you want to help tear down, that would be awesome. I'm going to announce it again tomorrow night at the beginning, but we're going to need people to help tear down. Basically, just tearing down the table tents. There's a thing I hate that we use, which is you might have seen these in conferences. They're like banners. They're vertical banners that are on these really funky looking stands that are kind of like really like 2 poles, and you bend the poles and things. You've seen those before, right? at different conferences you've been at. And I'm really challenged on putting those together. And so I would be very thankful if students would take those apart. I have students putting it together for me, but if you want to take that apart for me, that would be great. Save me some injury. Because they're just, it's where they pop on there. They have these poles, and if you don't put it on the right one at the right time, you have the poles pop back and hit in the face. And so, it's just kind of dangerous. For me anyway, for you probably not. And so tearing down the banners, tearing down the little table tents, and that's a little trash and stuff like that around. That's about it. So if you want to help do that, that would be much appreciated. I think if we, if people pitch in, we have 8 or 10 students hang back, even though it's over at 8, we can probably be done by 8:15, done and go home. Sound good? So anybody that's going, maybe think about doing that. That would be great. I would really appreciate it. So we're done for the night. If you have any questions about anything or you need help with your homework for last week, hang back. Be more glad to help you. Yes. Need some help? Oh, yeah. You have a question? Oh, you need some help? All right. Cool. Well, that's it for the night. If you are done, you're free to go. Otherwise, you can hang back and keep working on your final project, homework for this week, next week, whatever you want to do. Lab time now.